G'day, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the entire process of how I set up macOS Sonoma. Now, macOS Sonoma is an incredibly powerful and stable operating system. That said, it does require a fairly newish machine to run on. So let's jump into the computer and get started. Cool, so here we are in the computer, and I'll just minimize some of this stuff here. As you can see, there's a couple of things I've done to this computer. I've installed Keycaster, that's this here. So when I press a key on my keyboard, and that way you'll see all the keys that I'm pressing during this process. I've also installed Rode Connect to connect my microphone, and also OBS to record the session. And other than that, I have actually installed, if I open up my audio MIDI settings, I have actually installed Black Hole 16 channel, and that's because on a Mac you need to have something like that to record system audio into OBS. So that's pretty much it. So now before we start, I'll show you the specs of this Mac just so you know for reference what I'm working with. And this is an 8-core Intel i9 MacBook Pro. It has a Radeon Pro 4GB graphics card and 16GB of DDR4 RAM. So it's a pretty grunty machine. This is actually a friend's computer that firstly I fixed in the last video and now I'm configuring. So I'll close out of there. And the first thing I'm going to do is jump straight into system settings. Cool, and I'll expand this window a little bit. And as you can see, I'm using a dark theme, although that said, my panel is still light. So I'll fix that as we go. So firstly, let's jump into Wi-Fi. Now, because this computer is connected using an Ethernet cable, I'm not actually using Wi-Fi. So I'm going to turn Wi-Fi off and jump to Bluetooth. And I'll do the same for Bluetooth as well. I'm not using Bluetooth right now, but I can always turn it on later when I need it. And then I'll jump into network. And as you can see, I have my Ethernet cable connected. Now, the first thing I'll change in network is my firewall is inactive. So I'll enable that. And later in this video, I'll actually show you a firewall that gives you a lot more control over what apps are allowed to connect to the internet and receive information from the internet. This firewall is pretty decent, but it is lacking a little bit of control for my personal taste. Cool, so next I'll go to notifications. And I will actually disable a couple of these. And so I'm going to disable home because I don't actually run any smart devices in my house. And go back to notifications. And I'll also disable tips. Cool, next I'll go to sound. And in sound, I actually have the option to turn off that chime when I boot up my computer. However, it can be good for security. If you have your computer, you can always tell if someone's booting it up, but me personally, I'll actually turn that off. Cool, now I'll skip over a few of these and I'll go straight to accessibility. And firstly, I'll jump into display. And to squeeze the maximum performance out of this laptop, I'm actually going to reduce transparency. Cool, next I'll go to control center. And here I can specify what shows up here in the menu bar. So as you can see, Wi-Fi is in the menu bar. I'm actually going to also turn on Bluetooth in the menu bar, and that way I always know whether Bluetooth is turned on or off. And I don't know why this is turned off by default, but I definitely want sound to be in my menu bar as well. Now I'll scroll down here, and because this is a laptop with a battery, I want to show the battery percentage. Cool, I'll scroll down again. And that's pretty much it, except for Time Machine. I will show that in the menu bar because I will use that to back up my system. And that way I can always reinstall a setup system onto this laptop. Now, if you wanted to move items around on the menu bar, all you have to do is select one and then hold down your command key and you can move items around. Cool, next I'll go to privacy and security. And I'll just scroll down to the bottom of this list here. And so for extra security, I'd like to encrypt this hard drive. Now, if you have an older computer, you will actually slow down your computer. It may only be by a little bit, and the older the computer is, the more it'll slow the computer down. Now, if your computer is running an Apple T2 chip or newer, then the encryption process is extremely fast. With a slower computer, to actually encrypt your hard drive, that process also takes quite a while to do. Now, if you wanted to find out if your computer is running a T2 chip or newer, then what you do is you go up to your Apple menu and then click on About This Mac, More Info, and then scroll down here to System Report, and then go to Controller. And here we go, this laptop is running an Apple T2 security chip. So we'll actually encrypt this hard drive. So I'll close all that, and then go back to Privacy and Security, scroll down to File Vault, click on that, and then all you have to do is simply click Turn On, enter your password. And if you wanted to set this up with an iCloud account, then you can use your iCloud account, as you can see here, to reset the password. But I'm just going to use a recovery key, so I'll just click Continue. And this is really important. You want to take note or record this, because if you don't have this and you forget your password, then you won't be able to access any of your files on your encrypted hard drive. So it is definitely worth writing this down somewhere safe. But because I use a password that I won't forget, I'll just simply click Continue. And this shouldn't take too long at all. And that's it. File Vault is turned on and my hard drive is now encrypted. Cool, next I'll go to Desktop and Dock. And here is my dock down here. I'd like to change that. So I'm going to change the size, make it a little bit smaller, because I'll probably add a few items to this dock. And then I'll also switch on magnification. I'll probably turn it on about there. And now when I hover over things, they magnify to show where I am in the list. Now, if you wanted to remove items from your taskbar, all you have to do is right click it and then go to Options, Remove from Dock. And I'll also do the same for a couple of other items. And it's pretty much all I'll remove for now. Now, as you can see, I have these items here that I've minimized into my dock. I can actually quit out of there actually. So I'll quit that. Now, I'll open these. And as you can see, when I minimize them, they go down to this part of the dock. So I'll open that up and then go into my system settings. And then in Desktop and Dock, I'm going to enable Minimize Windows into the application icon. So now when I minimize this, this should actually minimize into OBS. So there we go. And I can do the same for the Road Connect app. And I'll also enable automatically hide and show the dock. Cool, next I'll scroll down here and this is fairly new in macOS. Stage Manager will actually clear your desktop if you had, say, widgets on your desktop or files that you want to show on your desktop. And to activate it, all you have to do is click on the desktop. However, with the way that I normally work, I quite often like to deselect a window by clicking the desktop. So for example, if I wanted to deselect the system settings, then currently with Stage Manager, I have to click it twice. Let's save on one click, hey? And I'm going to change Click Wallpaper to Reveal Desktop to Only in Stage Manager. Cool, then I'll scroll down here. And here I have Windows. And here in Windows, there is actually a really cool function here, ask to keep changes when closing documents. So if, for example, I'm working on a document and I forget to save it and I go to close it down or I go to shut down my computer, I'll actually get prompted whether or not I'd like to save that file or document. So that is always really good to have enabled. Cool, next I'll go to Displays. And as you can see, this is my external monitor. So to use an external monitor, I've got this mirroring to the external monitor. Now, if you are using external monitors or anything like that, and you wanted to control where everything is, you could just simply click Arrange, and at the moment it's mirroring. However, if I were to change the built-in display to stop mirroring, let's see if this keeps recording, hey? Okay, I'm going to check OBS. That's still working, that's good. And now I have an extended display, so I can move my external monitor to there, because this is where my monitor is in relation to my screen, and that way I can move the mouse in between screens exactly how it is here. Now I'll go done, but I actually want OBS to record the external monitor because it is 1080p. So I'll go back to extended display and I'll change that to mirror. So my built-in display will mirror what's going on my external monitor. So I'll do that now. Now, normally on a MacBook, I'd like to have full control over brightness and the colors. So what I'm going to do is disable automatically adjust brightness and also disable True Tone. Now, if you oftentimes work late into the night and you would like the computer to adjust the colors so that it blocks blue light at nighttime, blue light is known to affect your brain in a way where your brain still thinks it's daytime because blue light is showing. However, if you eliminate blue light, we have this function called night shift. So if I enable that, and I can schedule it, so I can go custom, and from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., night shift will function. And so later in the night, it will actually remove more blue light up until 7 a.m. where it'll just stop working until 10 p.m. where it starts again. However, I'm going to turn that off for this video and go done. Cool, so next I'll click on wallpaper and I'm going to change the wallpaper. So I can click on show all here. And if I scroll down, let's see, a really good one I like is iridescence. So I'll click on this and it's now downloading, as you can see here. Cool, that has downloaded and now it has been applied to my desktop. Now, because I'm using the dark theme, I'm not having this dynamically change the theme so, you know, it's light during the daytime and dark during the nighttime. I'd like to just keep it on dark. So I'm going to change this from automatic to dark. And next I'll click on screensaver and I'll scroll down here, and I like to use one of the traditional screensavers. I like drift, so I'll click on that. And then if I select options, it will show the color of this desktop. So I'll just OK to that. Cool, so next is lock screen. So I'll click on that. And for the sake of this video, I don't want the screensaver to kick in or the screen to turn off while this recording's going. So I'm actually going to change these. At the moment, it's got this warning that the display will sleep before the screensaver starts, which is this function here, turn display off on power adapter when inactive and same on battery. So if I change that to say 30 minutes, there you go. That gets rid of that warning, but I'm going to change these specifically for this recording. So I'm going to turn this on for 3 hours, and I'll also adjust turn display off to also 3 hours. Actually, I can change that to 2.5 hours. And for extra security, you actually have this option here, require a password after the screensaver begins or the display is turned off. Then you can actually change this to say 1 minute, and I'll just enter my password. Cool, I'll also turn on show password hints. I do like to use password hints. Cool, let's scroll down this list a bit further. And I'm just going to go straight to keyboard. Now, if you're one for using emojis in your messages or emails or in your documents, then you can actually turn on this function here, which is really cool. Press function key to show emojis and symbols. So now if I press my function key on my keyboard, it brings up my emojis. So that's a very quick way of accessing emojis. And if I press function again, it makes them go away. Now, because this particular computer has what's called a touch bar, which not all Macs have, the touch bar is kind of like a replacement for many of the functions like the volume keys and your keyboard backlight, your escape button, and also your function keys. Now, if I press and hold my function key on my keyboard, as you can see, the function keys now show up and I can now use my function keys. And next is dictation. Now, if you're a fan of using dictation to, say, write documents, which can be really, really handy if you have a stream of thought and you just want to record it, but you also want it in written form, then you actually have the option to use dictation. So I'll jump into my Launchpad and go into Other, and I'm going to grab the text edit and drag it into my taskbar. Actually, it's not going to allow me, so what I'll do is I'll put it back and just launch it. And now that it's been launched, I can right click that and go to options, keep in dock. And I'll just move this to the right a little bit and move this to the left. And okay, so now I have my text edit open. Now, if I go back to dictation, as you can see, the shortcut is to press the Control key twice. And this is how easy it is. I'll just press Control twice. And it's asking, do I want to enable dictation? And this only happens the first time you use it. And we'll go enable and not now. So now I'll go back to my text edit and I'll double click Control. And now, as you can see, I can now dictate whatever I'd like into my text edit. Full stop. Exclamation mark. And it's that easy. So to turn off dictation, all I have to do is press Control twice again. So I'll press that again. And that has turned off dictation. So that is a very handy function, I must say. So I'm going to quit out of text edit. So Command Q. And because I turned on the function earlier to prompt if I haven't saved a document when I'm closing a program, this has come up. So I'll just go delete because I don't want to save that. And back to system settings. Cool, next I'll go to trackpad. Now by default, tap to click has been disabled, so I'm going to enable that. And this also turns on the secondary click or your right click on your trackpad. Tap 2 fingers and that brings up your right click menu, which is very handy. Now next I'll go to scroll and zoom, so I'll disable natural scrolling. That is it for system settings. I'm going to close out of there. Cool, so next up, let's configure Finder. So if you go up to Finder and then Settings, as you can see, the keyboard shortcut to launch settings is Command and comma. Now, Command comma is how you access your preferences or your settings in pretty much most applications in macOS. So it's a very easy keyboard shortcut to remember. So I've got Finder selected, and if I go Command comma, and I'll just move that to the side a little bit, and I'll open a Finder window. So Command N opens a new window if you're on Finder, or if you see Finder up here. So here's a new window. So as you can see, I just opened up Finder and it's opened recent files. And of course I haven't opened any recent files. Now I'd actually prefer Finder to open up with my home directory showing. So I'll firstly go up to New Finder Windows Show and I'll change that to my home directory. So let's try that now. Command N. And there we go. We've now opened up in my home directory. Cool, next I'll go over to tags. Now if I expand my Finder window, as you can see I have these tags here and I could tag my folders if I choose to, but I actually don't even use this function personally. So I'll go over to Sidebar and then disable tags. So that's gotten rid of those. And if I wanted to show my movies, music, and pictures directory in my favorites over here, I can enable them here. So I will actually enable my home directory and then go into Finder, and I'm going to drag that below applications. And the way I work personally is I prefer to create my own folders rather than using the default folders, but that said, everyone has their own way of working. So I'm going to leave movies, music, and pictures not enabled. I also don't use connected servers or Bonjour computers, so I'll disable those and I'll leave everything else as is. Next I'll go over to advanced and I want to enable show all file name extensions, and that way I know exactly what I'm working with. And that is pretty much it. Oh, actually the last thing is when performing a search, I'm going to change that from search this Mac to search the current folder. Now I can always change that if I choose to, but usually if I'm doing a search, it's usually for a file within a folder. And I can select a top tier folder that will search everything in subfolders within that main folder. So search the current folder is perfectly fine for me. Cool, I'll close out of Finder settings. And before we close out of Finder itself, there are a few other things to do. So I'll go up to View, and at the moment we're showing as icons. I prefer to use a list, and that way I can expand folders if I choose to. And I want to show the path to each file. So for example, if I open up my external hard drive, if I wanted to know where my files are, so for example, if I selected this file here, then I'd like to know where this is on my hard drive. So if I go up to View and then Show Path Bar, down here now is the pathway to this file. So it is in my external exFAT partition on my external hard drive, and then that is within macOS installers, and this is the file here. So I can click on any of these and it'll actually take me to those locations. So I can click anywhere in that path and go to that location. Cool, next I'll go up to View, and I also want to show the status bar. And this is very handy because it shows me how many items I have showing in a window and also the amount of space I have available on that partition or hard drive or wherever you're specifying. Cool, I'll just expand this a little bit. Here we go. Now, if I wanted to show a preview, so I'll go up to my Sonoma setup and go up to OBS. So right now, if I wanted to click on one of these, I don't really have that much information. However, if I click on my keyboard, Shift, Command, and P, I now have a preview of the file that I select. And one of the cool things I can do also is have a quick preview of this by simply clicking here, and it'll actually start playing the file, which is very, very handy. Cool, next I'll go to View, Show View Options, and here I can actually specify what is showing up here. So just move this to the right a little bit. And if you wanted to toggle on and off the preview, then on your keyboard it is Shift Command P, and that way you've got kind of more space. So here I'll also enable date created, date last opened, and I can also move items around and resize them. So I can expand that and make that smaller, etc., etc. Cool, and that is pretty much it for the Finder settings. So I'll close out of that, and I'll also close the Finder window. Now, if you'd like to create what's called a smart folder, this is something that is really cool in macOS, then go up to File and create a new smart folder. Now, at the moment, I haven't specified any parameters for the smart folder, so I'll do that now. So firstly, I'll get this folder to search this Mac, and then I'll go over to plus, and then I'll specify the parameters. So rather than kind, I'm going to select last open date. Within the last, change days to months. Within the last, and let's make that 2 months. There we go. Now, when I do open this smart folder, I don't want to know which applications I've opened in the last 2 months. So I'm going to specify that. So if I hold down Option on the keyboard, as you can see over here, these 3 dots replace the plus. So I'll press Option and then click the 3 dots. And so I want to change the any of the following are true to none of the following are true. And so for the kind, I want to make sure that applications aren't searched for. And what I'm going to do now is click Save, and I'll save this as last 2 months. There we go. I'll save that, and it's added to the sidebar, so I can move that above applications, and now I can search for any of the files that I've opened in the last 2 months. Cool, so that is Finder now configured. So I'll close that, and now if I open up a new Finder window, Command N, I now have my newly configured Finder. Cool, so I'll close out of Finder, and now I'll open up Safari. Now Safari is, of course, the native web browser for macOS. And I'll just move this to the left a little bit. And to launch the Safari preferences or settings, it's Command, comma. And here we go. Cool, now when I'm browsing, I'd like to continue where I was last browsing. So here under Safari opens with, I'm going to change that from a new window to all non-private windows from the last session. Now remove history items, I'm going to change that from after 1 year to manually, and that way I've got more control over what history items I save or delete. Cool, start page favorites will of course be favorites. File download location. Now I'd like to be prompted as to where I'd like to save files, so I'll change that from downloads to ask for each download, and then remove downloaded list items, and I'll do this manually as well. Right, next I'll go to tabs, and actually I'll leave this as is. I'll go straight to autofill. Now I actually use Bitwarden to manage this, so I'm going to deselect all of these and then go over to search. Now at the moment the search engine is Google. I could change that, and I'll change that to DuckDuckGo, and I'll also use DuckDuckGo as the search engine when I'm private browsing as well. Cool, I won't worry about any of the rest of these. I'll go straight to advanced, and I want to show you the full website address, and that is it for the Safari settings or preferences. I can close out of there. Cool, next I'll go to view, and I want to show the status bar. So that's status bar is now on. Cool, so these are my favorites, and these are the preloaded favorites. So to edit those, go up to bookmarks and then edit bookmarks. And what I'll do is I'll expand the favorites list, and I'm going to delete all of these except for the Apple and iCloud links. So I'll select all of those, shift click to select all, and then click delete. So now if I open a new tab, so Command T to open a new tab, I can close the bookmarks tab now. As you can see, these are my favorites, and I can add my most used websites to this list here. Cool, so to edit this start page, I'll go down to the settings icon down here in the bottom right hand corner, and I'll click that, and I can change any of these. So I'm going to remove the background image. I'm going to also remove reading list, series suggestions, privacy report, and I'll leave the rest of these enabled. And that's it for Safari. So I can close out of Safari, Command Q. Cool, so now we're going to go deeper into the settings, and what I'm going to do next is open up my Launchpad. I'm going to drag my terminal into my taskbar. So I'll grab that, and oh, it's not allowing me to. That's a bit annoying. So what I'll do again is launch it, and here it is there, and I'll right click, go to options and keep in dock, and I'll expand my terminal window, and here is my terminal. So I'm going to configure this, Command comma to get into settings, and because I'm going to be using terminal a lot in the next series of installs, what I'm going to do is go to profiles, and firstly I'll change the font size. So I'll go change, and let's move that over here, and I'm going to make this say 14, I reckon, and close out of there, and I'll quit and relaunch terminal. So Command Q to quit, and then relaunch it. And here we go, it's a little bit easier to see, and I'll open that up a little bit and reopen the settings or preferences, so Command comma. And what I want to do next is to make sure that this showing where the cursor is, I want it to blink just so that it kind of gives me a bit of visual feedback. So I'll select blink cursor, and that's all I need to do in my preferences. So I'll close out of there, and of course now I have the blinking cursor. Now I could stop there, this is perfectly fine. I now have terminal configured the way I'd like. However, I'm going to take it to the next level. I'm going to reopen my settings, so Command comma, and I'll go back to general. And what I'll do next is I'm going to select shells open with, and what I'll do is select command. And so this will open with the zish shell. So I'll close out of general, and I'll also close out of terminal, Command Q, and relaunch terminal, and I'll again expand this window. Now right now my terminal is perfectly functional. However, I'd like to beautify it and give it a bit of a theme to make it look a bit nicer to use. So it's actually relatively easy to do. All you have to do is open up a browser window. So I'll open up Safari, and I'm going to do a search for Oh My Zish. And there we go, I'll click on ohmy.zish. So I'm going to click on install Oh My Zish. And as you can see here, Oh My Zish works best on macOS or Linux. So to install this, what I'll do is I'll just move my terminal over a little bit, and let's resize this to fit. Let's see, we'll go back to install Oh My Zish. Cool, so I'm not actually going to run this command straight away. I'm going to go and click on read the documentation first. And if I just scroll down here, I want to make sure that I've installed Zish, and I'll hold down command and then click that, and that should open in a new tab. And that way I can always go back to this tab here. And so firstly I want to check if Zish is installed. So I'll copy Zish -- version, command copy, and then paste that here and press return. And as you can see, I'm running Zish 5.9. So Zish is installed because we specified that in the settings. As you can see here, the command complete path is bin/zish. So I'll close out of there. And if you wanted to check if it is your default shell, I'll copy echo $shell, command copy, and paste that in terminal and run that. And that is good. That does mean that Zish is running as the default shell. So I'll scroll down here, and I don't have to run any of these. Cool, so I'll close out of there, and now I can run any of these commands here. So I'm going to use curl. I'll just triple click this to select all, and then I can right click, copy, and then right click, paste, and press enter. And it's saying that Xcode select, note no developer tools were found, but as you can see hiding here behind everything is this git command requiring command line developer tools. So I'll click install to install these developer tools, and I'll just agree to that. And that has completed, so now I can click done. And I'll rerun that script. So in terminal, all I have to do is press the up arrow to load my previous command. And as you can see, if I keep pressing my up arrow, it'll actually go through the history of various commands that I've run. So let's go back to the start and go up one, and then press return, and this should now install. There we go, cloning Oh My Posh. So this shouldn't take too long at all. There we go, it has completed. So I'll clear the screen, Command L to clear the screen. So if I quit out of terminal and I'll reopen it, and then reopen terminal. And what I want to do is scroll down to where it says take a look at our themes. So I'll click on themes. And to give my terminal a theme, all I have to do is edit this .zshrc file. So in my terminal, I'll type in sudo, and that runs as a super user, and then nano, and that will open an editor in terminal, and then type in tilde /.zshrc, and if I press return, enter my password, try that again. And if I wanted to select a theme, let's see the list here. So I'll open up the list to see what I have available. And if I open up this window here, these are the themes. If I just actually go to Oh My Posh, and if I scroll down, I can go back to the Oh My Posh page. And up here we have themes. And if I scroll down here, here are the themes that I can choose from. Now there is a whole bunch of themes I can choose from, but I actually have a favorite that I always use, which is a theme called Pheno. So if I just scroll down to Pheno, EF, there it is. And this is the theme that I'll use. So to use this theme is really easy. I'll just minimize Safari, and all I have to do is change where it says Zish theme from Robbie Russell, which is the default theme. And I'll use my arrow to select that and use my arrow. And what I'll do is I'll delete Robbie Russell and replace it with Pheno. Cool, I'll save that. So Control X and then Y for yes, and then return to write it to disk. So that is now loaded. Now if I close and reopen my terminal, and that is my theme now loaded into terminal. Of course, what I'm going to install next is something called Homebrew. Now, if you've ever used Homebrew, it's a brilliant way of installing applications. It's all done in the command line, and you don't have to use the Apple Store to install applications. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'll go back to Safari, and I'll open a new tab, and I'll close the others. And I'll do a search for Homebrew. And here is the website here, brew.sh. So I'll click on that. And this is Homebrew here. So it is so simple to install Homebrew. All you have to do is copy this code here by pressing on the clipboard. And then go over to your terminal. I'll expand that. And then just paste the command and then press enter or return. Enter your password. And then press return again. So I'll speed up this bit of the video and return as soon as this has completed downloading and installing. Cool, that has completed. Now before I use Homebrew, there are a couple of commands to run, and those are these commands here. So I'll just copy this first command, right click copy, and then right click paste. And I'll run that. That's done. And then the second command is this one here. Right click copy and right click paste and press enter. And Homebrew is now ready to run. So if I go back to the Homebrew web page, and if I wanted to install a program, so for example I wanted to install Brave, I just go to the search bar here and then search for Brave browser. There it is there. So I'll click on that, and this is the command to install Brave browser. And anything that you see that has -- cask means that it will actually not only install the application, it'll also place it into the launchpad. So I'll install Brave browser just to show you an example, and I'll click on the clipboard, go to terminal and Command V to paste and press return. And this is now installing Brave browser onto the computer, and I didn't have to use the App Store or even go to the website. This will actually install the latest stable version of Brave browser. So that's now installing. So I'll speed up this bit of the video and I'll catch you as soon as this has completed installing. And there we go. Brave browser has now been installed. So I'll jump into my Launchpad, and here is Brave browser here. So I'll drag that into my dock, and it is that easy to install applications. So I could have actually installed OBS using the same method. There are some applications that you won't be able to find. So for example, Road Connect is very specific to Road. So if I go back to Safari and do a search for Road Connect, there we go, it's actually in here. So I could have actually installed Road Connect using Homebrew. So I'll click out of there, and what I'm going to do is I'll minimize Safari and I'll expand the terminal window. There we go. So now what I'll do is I'll install a couple of command line applications. So these won't actually show up in the Launchpad. However, these applications can be run using the command line. So to install these applications, I'll type in brew install, and this time I won't type in -- cask. I'll just type in fast fetch. And the other cool thing about Homebrew is you can install multiple applications at once, which is absolutely brilliant. So I'll put in space in and then type in htop. And so this is going to install fast fetch and htop, which are both command line or terminal applications. I'll press return, and this should be pretty quick because they're quite small programs. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll clear the window. So Command L to clear the window, or Control L. There we go. That completely clears the window. And now if I run fast fetch. Now if I wanted to run htop, I'll just type in htop. And this is a brilliant application that has a very small footprint, and it shows what is being run in the background, as well as the amount of RAM being used, and also the load on the various cores of CPU. Cool, so I'll quit out of terminal, Command Q, and just simply click terminate, and I'll reopen terminal. So now what I want to do is install a bunch of applications. So what I'll do is I'll type in brew install and then -- cask, because all of these applications will be loaded into the Launchpad, and put in a space, and I'll install a bunch of applications. So firstly, I'll type in AltTab, and I'll show you how I configure these once these have been installed. And I'll also install Raycast, as well as itccal, and also stats. And the last application will be hidden bar. And I'll catch you once these have installed. And that has completed, so I can quit out of terminal. And if I jump down into my Launchpad, as you can see, here are the new applications that I've installed. So the first application I'll configure is one called AltTab, and I'll click open. And AltTab would like to record this computer's screen and audio. So I'll click Open System Settings and then enable AltTab. And then click Quit and Reopen. There we go. And I'll leave System Settings open. I'll just drag that to the side. And then I'll go to Accessibility and open Accessibility Preferences. And then I'll also enable AltTab here. And then close and reopen AltTab. So I'll just close it from there, go back to my Launchpad, and I'll relaunch AltTab. So as you can see, background items added, AltTab has been added to run in the background, which is really cool. So what AltTab does, here is AltTab right there, is it's kind of a more comprehensive way of using your Command Tab function to switch between applications. So at the moment, if I click Command Tab, it shows my applications and I can select which one I would like to open. However, if I had multiple windows of the same items, so for example, I'll open multiple Finder windows. So here's a couple of Finder windows, and I'll make one showing the last 2 months and the other one showing documents. And now if I go back to Command Tab, as you can see, if I were to open Finder, it doesn't actually show that I've got multiple windows open. So now if I go up to Alt Tab, and if I just left click that, and then go to Preferences, and Start at Login is what I'd like. And then if I go over to Controls, and so here is the pre-configured shortcut, which is Option and Tab. So I'll try that now, and I'll show you just how cool Alt Tab is. So I'll hold down Option and press Tab, and there you go. So now I can see everything that I have opened, and also multiple windows of the same applications using Alt Tab. Cool, so the next application is an incredibly powerful application. It's open source and it's free. There is a paid version as well, which turns it into an absolute mega beast of an application. However, the free version has an incredible amount of functionality that is really useful for macOS users. And it's so feature rich and easy to use, and did I mention open source? Just be aware that if your computer is a little bit older, then Raycast may take up too many of your resources, especially if you're doing really intensive work on your computer. However, if you've got a newer Mac, then Raycast is absolutely brilliant because the footprint is small enough on a powerful machine to be barely noticeable running in the background. So I've already installed it using Homebrew. So what I'll do is I'll jump into Launchpad, and let's go to Raycast, and I'll launch Raycast and click Open. And here we go, it is now running. And Raycast would like to access the microphone, and this is for transcribing audio or translation. So I'll click Allow. And as you can see, Raycast will open automatically when you log in, and you can manage this in login item settings. So I'm going to go straight into Start Setup. So I'll close that notification and click Start Setup. And as you can see, just by hovering over this, it shows shortcuts. So rather than pressing Continue, I can just press Return on my keyboard. So out of the box, there are a whole bunch of productivity tools that, as you can see here, macOS should have shipped with. But that's cool because I now have them available to me using Raycast. So I'll press Enter to go to the next screen. And here I can easily install extensions. So for example, if I wanted to install the color picker, I'll just click that. And it's as easy as that. So I'll press Return to continue. And here's the option if I wanted to use Raycast Pro. However, I'm going to click on Maybe Later. And so to launch Raycast, on my keyboard I press Option Space, and it's already loaded anyway, so there we go. If I wanted to record a new hotkey, then I can do that by pressing this button here. At the moment, if I go to Spotlight and I click that, and I can adjust this in System Settings. So I'll jump into System Settings, and I'll do a search for Spotlight. So Siri and Spotlight, click on that. And the keyboard shortcut for Spotlight is Command Space. So it is different to Raycast. Cool, so I'll click continue or return on my keyboard. And I have permissions here that I can allow, so I can grant access by clicking this button here, or files and folders. If I wanted to search for anything in my files and folders, I'm going to click grant access to that, and allow, and allow, and allow, and allow. And I'll also do the same for accessibility, so I can actually tile my windows, and I'll show you how to do that very, very soon. So I'll grant access and go open system settings, and then enable Raycast in accessibility. Cool, enter my password. Oh, wrong password. And I can quit out of system settings. And actually I will grant access to calendar and contacts, and that way I can set reminders for meetings and that kind of thing, which is very, very cool. So I'll grant access, allow full access, and then continue. And if I wanted to sign up for the newsletter, I can enter my email here, but I'll just press return to continue. And ready for takeoff. So I'll hit option space to continue, option space, and party time. We have now installed Raycast. So what we're looking at right now is Raycast. If I close out of there, you can always find Raycast here. So I can always click this to access Raycast, or click option space. So option space. And before I start, I'm going to start supercharging my productivity by going through the walkthrough. So I'll open the walkthrough by clicking this button here. And I can learn as much as I want about Raycast by running any of these tasks to learn more. Now, if I go over to actions and I click that, I can actually bypass this sort of walkthrough by simply clicking mark as completed. And I'll do the same for that one, and also that one. And I'll do this for all of these. Or as you can see, command return does the same thing. So I'll do that, command return, return. And that is the walkthrough completed. So it says you're all done. Now there are really useful links that you can use, but I'm going to use my back button to go back to the start. Now, because I've installed Homebrew, I'm going to install the Homebrew plugin into Raycast. And what I'll do is I'll click on Store and then press Return to open the store, and then continue. And now I can search for the extensions. So I'll do a search for Homebrew. And here is Homebrew right there. So I'll click that and then go over to Actions. And I want to install the extensions. And as you can see, the shortcuts are really consistent. So command return will install the extensions. So I'll click that and then command return, and it is now installing the extension. That is done. So now if I press escape, that will take me back. And now if I close and reopen Raycast, so option space, and I'll type in brew, and I can now search brew. So rather than having to go online to the Homebrew website and doing a search to make sure that an application or the correct name of the application is available to download and install using Homebrew, I can actually do it all now through Raycast. So if I click on search here and then press return to open it, and I can search for any application. I can either scroll through this or actually do a search. So I'll search here. So I'll search for Firefox. And so we have many versions of Firefox we can install, from the latest nightly version to the ESR or the extended support version. But I'll just select the latest and then command return to install it. So that's now installing. And that has completed. So now if I jump into Launchpad, here is Firefox. So I'll drag that also into my dock. And how cool is that? Didn't have to open up the App Store again. So very, very cool. I'm sure you've seen people that are really proficient using a program, but they never click on menus or anything. They do everything by keyboard. And that's sort of the key to really fast workflows when you're using any application, to actually use a lot more shortcuts than mouse clicks. So now if I go up to Raycast in the menu bar and right click that and then click settings, and now I'll click on extensions, and This is where Raycast absolutely shines. So what I'll do now is create some shortcuts so I don't have to use my mouse to open applications. So for example, I'm so used to opening a terminal window by pressing Control-Option-T on my keyboard. So I'll go to Applications, expand that folder, and then scroll down till I find the terminal. Here it is here, and I can now record my hotkey that will launch terminal. So I'll click on Record Hotkey, and then Control-Option-T, hotkey is set. So now if I press Control-Option-T, that launches a terminal window. Very, very handy. So I'll also create a hotkey to launch a Finder window. So where's Finder? Here we are. So Finder, Record Hotkey, and I'm used to using Command E. So that is now set. Command E launches a Finder window. And what I'll do next is create some tiling shortcuts. So I'll scroll down here till I find Window Management, and I'll expand that. And here are all the shortcuts I can create. So for example, for the bottom half, I can record a hotkey, and I've kind of got muscle memory for shortcuts for tiling that I use in Linux and also in Windows. So I'm going to use shortcuts that are very similar so I don't have to relearn any new shortcuts. So for example, the bottom half, I'll record the hotkey, which will be Option Command down arrow, and bottom left corner, which will be Option Command J, bottom right quarter, which will be Option Command K, and let's see what else. Center, I'll go Option Command C, and I'll scroll down here. Let's see what else I've got. And I've got Maximize, so for Maximize, I'll record the hotkey Option Command 9. And let's see, scroll down. Actually, toggle full screen. So I'll delete that hotkey and scroll down to toggle full screen. So I'll record that as Option Command 0. And scroll down. Top half will be Option Command up arrow. Top left quarter is Option Command U. Top right quarter is Option Command I, and I'll scroll down here. Okay, right half, record hotkey, Option Command right arrow, and let's see if I can find left half. There it is. Option Command left, and now let's see this in action. So I'll launch a Finder window, and now if I hold down Option Command, I can go left half a screen, right half a screen, top, bottom, and then I have my quarters. This is really handy if I had multiple windows. So I'll open up a Finder window and then create another window and another window. So now I can tile this window by holding down Option Command. I can tile this window to the right, this window to the top left. So now I can work really easily, all using shortcuts to tile my windows. So very, very powerful. So I'll close all of those windows and go back to Raycast. So I'll scroll back up and unexpand the window management window. And so now that I've replaced Spotlight, I'm actually going to remove Spotlight from the menu bar. So I'll firstly close Raycast settings and then open up my system settings and then go to the control center and then scroll down here till I find Spotlight. Here we go, and I'm going to select Don't Show in Menu Bar, and that has now removed that from the menu bar and given me a little bit more space there as well. So I'll close System Settings. Now, as you're probably aware, macOS does come with a pre-installed firewall, and I've got this active. However, this doesn't actually give you full control over how your Mac communicates with the internet. So some of your apps will communicate online, and the macOS pre-installed firewall won't actually catch a lot of these communications happening in the background. This next application is a brilliant application. It's free, it's open source, and it actually gives you a lot more control over how your computer and the apps you've installed communicate online. So I've already installed it using Homebrew, and if I have a look in the Launchpad, as you can see, here is LuLu. So I'll launch that now and open, and here we go. So I'll just run through the setup. I'll just click next, then open system settings, And here where it says system software from application LuLu.app was blocked from loading, I'll click allow and then throw in the old password and then click allow again, and we are off and away. So I can minimize system settings, and I'm going to allow Apple programs, and I'll also allow already installed applications, and then click next. And as you can see, LuLu is up and running. I'll press no, and off we go. And that's all there is to it. So as we go along, you'll see that I'll have a pop-up whenever my Mac or any of the applications that I install try to communicate with their home base. Now, this is great if you like to play being a pirate, then this application is extremely handy. Now, if your MacBook has a Li-ion battery and you'd like to extend the lifespan of that battery, then it's recommended that you keep the charge somewhere between the 20 and 80% range. If it drops below 20% or goes above 80%, you can significantly reduce the lifespan of your battery. So I've already installed it using Homebrew, so I can jump into my launch pad, and here is Aldente. So I'll launch that and open it. And I will install the helper, so I'll click OK, and then throw in the old password. And the helper is now installed, and this is running in the background. So Aldente is trying to connect to the internet. I can easily block that from here, and then run through the setup. So I'll click the right arrow. Yep, it's already installed, so I'll click already installed, and then I'll run through these. So I'll open the settings, ground, and I'll move this to the right a little bit. What's this over here in the background? Check for updates. I'll click don't check, and then next I'll click on this info icon next to battery health, and for optimized battery charging I'm going to disable that, and I'll turn this off completely, and then click done. And with that done, I can now click the next arrow, and for this I'll just skip that, and I'll use the free version. And that is now working, so it is now going to limit at 80%. Cool, so I'll click on the preferences icon, and firstly I'll quickly check for updates. Put that up there, and I will enable launch at login, and then jump into the update error. That's because I've actually blocked this in LuLu. So if I wanted to unblock this in LuLu, I'll jump into the rules, and I'll show the rules. And as you can see, I have the Aldente blocked here, so I'll delete that rule, and I can close out of LuLu, and I'll cancel that and try it again. So check for updates, and I'll allow this temporarily this time. We're up to date, brilliant. So I'll click OK, and next I'm going to jump into Appearance, and I'll disable Show at Startup, and also show the dock icon. And that's it. I've now configured Aldente, so I can close that now, and I'll minimize system settings. Cool, next I'm going to configure a program called Stats, and what this is going to do is place some statistics about my computer up in the menu bar. So I'll firstly jump into my Launchpad, and here is Stats right here. I'll click on that, and now I have some statistics in the menu bar. So to configure stats, all I have to do is right click any of these and then click on this settings cog. Cool, so I'm going to start from the very top. I'll start with CPU, and everything here is perfectly fine. I'll jump into widgets, and I'm going to align this to the right, and then I'll jump into GPU. I'll leave that disabled, and then go to RAM, and I'll do the same here again. I'll jump into widgets and align this to the right. And the disk I'll actually disable because I don't really need that information. And next I'll select the sensors, and I'm going to enable that. And right now it's showing the power of the average system total. So I actually don't want that to show. I want to show something slightly different. So I'm going to change that from the average system total power, and I'll scroll up this list to the hottest CPU. So this is going to give me some feedback to make sure that my computer doesn't run too hot. So with that selected, I'll now jump into widgets, and I'm also going to align this to the right. Cool, next I'll go to network, and this is network here, and everything is perfectly fine. So I'm going to leave that as is. Oh, excuse me, I seem to have a visitor. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Yes, that's the microphone. Yes, I'm just working on the stats for the computer. Yes, that's right. Back to it. So where were we? That's right, network. And then I'll jump into battery. And I actually don't need this battery info to show because I have the built-in battery info, so I'll turn that off. And Bluetooth is disabled, perfectly fine. Clock I'll leave disabled as well. And then jump into settings. And if I just scroll down here, I want this to start at login. So I'll enable that. And if I scroll down this list here, if I made any mistakes, I could always click this reset settings, and that will actually take me back to the default setup of stats. And that is pretty much all there is to it. So I'm going to close out of the settings, and now I have stats up here in my menu bar. Very handy. Of course, now we have a few extra things in the menu bar. It does look a bit messy, so there is actually a really cool way of cleaning this up, and that's using an application that is another free and open source application. It's called Hidden Bar, and we can actually hide some of these items here. So if you wanted to install it, option space, and then go to search, and I'll type in Hidden Bar. Here it is. So I've already installed it using Homebrew. So I'll jump into Launchpad, and here is Hidden Bar. So I'll click that. It cannot be opened, so I'll go OK. And I may have to allow this in my system settings. So I'll go to Privacy and Security and scroll down here. And here we go. Hidden Bar was blocked from use because it's not from an identified developer. So I'll open it anyway. And then throw in the old password. And then click Open. And here is Hidden Bar. So I'll minimize system settings and then go back to the Hidden Bar settings. So I will start Hidden Bar when I log in, and I'll disable Show Preferences on launch. And then to use this is very, very easy. I can close out of Preferences. If I click on the Hidden Bar arrow, now I can see this pipe or vertical line appear, and that will appear for about 10 seconds and then disappear again. And so essentially everything to the left of this pipe will be hidden after 10 seconds when Hidden Bar closes again. So to drag any item, so for example, Time Machine, I don't really need to have that showing all the time. I'll open up Hidden Bar and then Command and hold and drag this to the left of the pipe. And I'll also do the same for the Aldente battery optimizer. And I'll also drag Raycast over there. Now, as you can see, it closed before I dragged it over. So it's not actually in Hidden Bar. So I'll open up Hidden Bar again and then Command and drag that over to the left of the pipe. And I'll also do the same for AltTab and also for Keycaster. And there we go. And I'll drag OBS to the left of stats and also the LuLu firewall to the left of stats. And now I have a much tidier menu bar. Thank you for watching this video. If you got any value at all, or if you'd like to support my channel in any way, please just drop us a like. And I have a few more macOS videos coming up, so if you'd like to see those, just hit the subscribe button and you'll be prompted when I upload those. And for you Linux people out there, I have a bunch of Linux videos coming up very, very soon. So stay tuned, and until next time, catch you soon.